And welcome to Maximizing Impact, the Value of Fractional Leadership for Nonprofits. We want to welcome everybody here. We're streaming live on LinkedIn. We've got multiple people coming in from all over the country. Feel free to comment below in the LinkedIn comments where you're connecting in from. We'd love to hear. We also would love to get questions for our Q&A that's coming up at the end, but we're going to talk a little bit about what fractional leadership is, introduce each of us and what we bring to the table when it comes to fractional leadership. And we're also going to go through some scenarios we've set up for you guys. And I know you're going to have a grand old time enjoying seeing all of this. Maximizing impact, that's what we are here to do with nonprofits. We work with both nonprofits and regular organizations for some of us, and we definitely want to be able to welcome everyone who's coming to the group today. Here's a view of our panelists, and we'll each be introducing them independently, but I'm going to talk more about what fractional leadership is. And the question is, what is fractional leadership? There's this great chart that I love to share that breaks down the difference between fractional, consultant, interim, and advisor. Sometimes those terms are getting passed around and used interchangeably, but there's some differentiations that happen with these terms. When it comes to being embedded with a team, a fractional leader is actually part of the team, part of the C-suite, part of the leadership, part of the decision-making, the day-to-day. A consultant is only there for giving answers to questions. When you have an interim placed executive, they're also part of the team. When someone's labeled an advisor, they're not part of the embedded team. There's also a timeline. When it comes to fractional leadership, there's no end date for fractional leadership. They're part of the team, they're part of the everyday. When it's a consultant, there's more of a contract, and it limits the time that they're are going to be connected with the team. An interim is exactly that. Interim, it's temporary, it's only for a limited amount of time. And again, advisor is not given an end date. Is a fractional person full-time? I feel like this is key. You're bringing in a full-time experienced person without paying the full-time salary. You don't have to worry about that. They're coming in on a fractional as needed basis. Some consultants, maybe you need to bring them on full-time. An interim person, definitely full-time salary. Advisor, no. Do they represent the company? They're a key part of your leadership team. They're a key part of your organization. So yes, a fractional leader is part of the group that represents your company. A consultant might not be, an interim would be, and an advisor no. Leadership is key to being that fractional position that they, yes, are in a leadership position. They're part of the C-suite, decision makings, the day-to-day, the strategy, the operations, and so forth. What are the key benefits to nonprofits? There's a cost efficiency, accessing a high level expertise without the overhead of a full-time hire. There's flexibility. A fractional leader can come in more at the beginning and less later on in a retainer, or less in the beginning and more when a project is ramping up, or seasonality. There's flexibility that comes with fractional leadership. You're bringing in that expertise. That's someone who's come from the industry and knows what they've been doing, and they're specialists and industry specific with their knowledge, driving that impact with the organization. There's scalability with fractional leaders, that they can adjust their involvement as needed, and you don't have to go and renegotiate a contract. They come and go as you need them as part of the team. So let's kind of dive into each of our panelists that I'll introduce, and they'll introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their impact with their industry and some examples. So starting up with Bishop Francisco of Localish Marketing. How are you doing, Bishop?
I'm good, Ross. Thank you so much. And thank you for kicking us off. And thank you, everyone who is taking the time to join us this morning. We hope you can walk away with something insightful about fractional leadership. So my name is Bishop Francisco. I'm the owner of Localish Marketing, and I'm also a growth marketing strategist. So at Localish, we offer marketing consulting and fractional leadership for nonprofits, as well as service-based businesses. One of the key areas in the growing market today is that the baseline is to have a multi-channel marketing strategy to remain competitive. And those strategies can become very disjointed, very disorganized, very easily. So what we do is we come in and we design and execute marketing systems that are focused on three key areas this will be specific for my nonprofit people. So we focus on increasing brand awareness that builds engagement. We focus on nurturing those relationships with those donors and memberships to ultimately, and the third is to increase donor contributions. And one of the key focuses for Localish, if you are familiar with the marketing funnel, each of those three areas hits the different stage for your ultimate donors and your members. And it kind of pushes them down that journey to becoming and building a relationship. So at a high level, that's how Localish Marketing supports our nonprofit members. Next, I'm going to kick it over to Callie Fulton.
Thanks, Fish, so much for having me today on this time with each of the panelists. As taking the time to be with us said, I hope that you walk away with something concrete, breakthrough that. So I'm Callie Fulton, founded an HR consultancy for nonprofit leader myself, which is precisely why the HR burden, so that nonprofit focus on your mission and help your people thrive. Scenario that some of you will resonate with. Your organization's mission, hours managing HR issues instead is precisely why specialized. We find that justify a full-time HR staff, but they do face the same ones. And then nonprofit leaders and HR managers without proper. Most provide specialized HR entire employee life cycle, from team and manager development, everyone's favorite, compliance. The fractional model offers, mentioned earlier, it can scale up and down, maintaining budget discipline. Thus, often reclaim an average of focus on mission activity. Executive director told me recently focus entirely on strategy execution, because I know our people operations are in people matter most. We believe just that people are our most powerful resource when they can grow exponentially. So we're sharing this time today to discuss fractional work in the nonprofit sector.
Awesome. Thanks, Callie. Much appreciated. It's great having you on with all of us. We definitely are constantly connected in an interconnecting world with all different types of network connectivity with each type of computer and internet connection. We definitely have a lot going on with all of us, and I definitely want to continue on with connecting Wendy Laxton of Laxton CFO Services. Go ahead and go it off, Wendy.
Awesome. Wanted sound check. Everything okay on my sound?
Everything's good on yours. Yep.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ross. Hello, everybody. My name is Wendy Laxton, and I am the founder and president of Laxton CFO Services. So we provide financial management, financial leadership and strategy, and financial operations support exclusively to nonprofits. We made that decision about 3 years ago that that's what we wanted to do, is only work with nonprofits. We started in 2009 when I took my first fractional CFO gig. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I was really filling time in between roles, but I loved it. And I'll talk a little bit more as we go through about why I loved it then and why, fast forward from 2009 to today, I still love it. But since 2009, we have worked with almost 40 nonprofit organizations, from startup to over 20 million. We have Worked with nonprofits. Most of our nonprofits are in the Charlotte, North Carolina region, but we also work with nonprofits located in Texas, DC, Boston, and those that have a national virtual presence and that dabble in international services as well. We have a team of 5 people, and we engage contractors when we need additional expertise or when we have capacity gaps. We'll bring in contractors for that. We have our current portfolio of 15 nonprofits. Of those 15 nonprofits, 5 of those I serve as the CFO for those organizations. Of those 5, 4 of those I'm an officer of the organization and serve actively on the leadership team. And we use a hybrid model to serve our nonprofits. For those in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, we can certainly spend time on site, and we do. But we're also structured to provide our services in a hybrid way. You'll see in the slide where I talk about examples, it's really what we try to do with all of our clients. And I think there's something you'll hear more throughout this discussion about stability and bringing a diverse and kind of a breadth of experience to our nonprofits, because you certainly don't, a nonprofit doesn't need a C-level or all C-level expertise 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. So how do we bring it kind of just in time when the organization needs it and serve as that thought partner? So I hope if nothing else, you come out of this and see kind of the passion the 5 of us have for the work we do for our nonprofits. And so speaking of passion, let me introduce you now to Chrissy Davis with Mission Mappers. Chrissy.
Thanks, Wendy. It's good to be here and good to hear more about all of these professionals that I've gotten to know and some that I've had the chance to work with. I'm Christine Davis, and through my business, Mission Mappers, I most frequently work as a fractional COO. But as you saw the chart that Ross shared, sometimes some of those columns get fused together. And so another role that I'm often asked to play is a fractional interim COO, since many nonprofits often find themselves with a leadership vacancy. And before they fill the role, they really want to assess what's truly needed going forward. So often in those fractional interim COO roles, I'll come in and fill a hole immediately from the person that has left, create stability in the operations area, but then also start to work and assess and make recommendations for organizational structure and strengthening, including team alignment for fulfilling the mission. From a fractional operations standpoint, I think it's fair to say that fractional operations is probably broader in scope than some of the other team members that are here today sharing. And the reason for that is, we're really brought in to look at organizing the whole organization and looking at helping create efficiency across the board and streamlining processes across the board and looking for expense savings across the board. So that our work often touches all areas of an organization. And that's why I love this panel, because I am often collaborating with other fractional leaders like them and have had the chance to work with them and their teams to do that. So as I'm often focusing both broadly and addressing what I call mission critical initiatives that we discover along the way, the goal is to really help strengthen organizations, usually getting started with an assessment that I like to do collaboratively with the team. That embeddedness that we talked about earlier really helps me to do that and help our clients prioritize their needs. And it also, that embeddedness also helps me experience how teams are working together, along with the tools that they're using and the processes they're following, to really get a complete picture of where we can start and what we can accomplish together. As I thought about the examples of what I do specifically, once I'm with a client, one that came to mind is, recently I've been working as a fractional COO and chief of staff for a nonprofit and reporting to their board, since they've needed help providing support to a very lean leadership team while also working collaboratively with the staff. So in this role, I've helped lead direction setting both organizationally and at the department and cross-functional team levels, and also created implementation roadmaps, and along the way supported the team working through the changes that we designed together. My goal is always to be collaborative and help inspire change and help the teams implement it intentionally so that long after I might not be there, what we create together sticks and continues to serve them. And so with that, I will pass it on to Ross to wrap us up on the introductions.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Chrissy. It's been quite a storied career for me. I've been an IT consultant for 25, 30 years, and that consultant isn't quite the same as the fractional CITO I am today. Coming into the leadership position, really driving the organization, making sure that the organization is being efficient with their technology as well as their budget. It's key with the amount of technology that's out there today. I'm having discussions a lot these days about AI, the usage of AI in the workplace, the usage of AI in nonprofit organizations. Nonprofits are always trying to do more with less, and we're trying to build policies and training and procedures around the usage of AI with multiple organizations right now of different sizes. We want to empower technology to be that efficiency, to be able to get more done with less. And if the technology is not working, the organization is not able to deliver their mission. At my company, Better Call IT, we like to say we're the Advil for the technology headache. Everything is what runs our operations today is our technology, and it's important for us to be able to have a fluid working set of bits and bytes that we can depend on every day to do what we need to be able to do. We have a couple questions that we got ahead of time in our registration, and we wanted to get those questions answered today before we open it up for Q&A. And the Q&A is the comment section at the bottom of LinkedIn. Feel free to type in who you are, where you're watching us from, and what your question is today. But for this one, which core values do fractional leaders bring to their work? I think this is a great question for Wendy and Bishop. Wendy, do you want to kick us off on this one?
I'd be happy to.
Awesome.
When I think about core values and what we're trying to bring, or where we align, or how we maybe amplify the core values of the organization, I immediately go to objectivity. I think that by not being fully embedded in any one organization, it allows fractional leaders, i.e. me, certainly speaking from the I position, to better maintain my objectivity. So that when we're bringing ideas to the table, when we're evaluating alternatives, when we're evaluating risk, and making recommendations, I think it positions us to have an unbiased viewpoint, which I think can make it easier, perhaps, at least for me, to keep the focus on the organization's mission and make it, frankly, less personal, which also I think helps build some credibility and trust with the team. And I think that objectivity kind of also lends itself to perspective when we think about kind of values and how we step in and how we help support the mission. Most of us are coming to our nonprofits with years of experience and working with other organizations, navigating other dynamics, certainly experiencing failure, as well as experiencing success, and using that perspective to bring that kind of thought leadership to the nonprofit. So those are the two that popped to my mind and came to mind kind of immediately. There's certainly others, but Bishop, I'd love to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, you, Wendy, hit the nail on the head. When I think of the key value add that fractional leaders bring, objectivity would be number one, and number two, or a great segue to that, is the accountability piece, because I know you touched on this a little bit with us coming in as fractional leaders and bringing expertise and seeing failure and seeing wins. We have to be very strategic with our time. We have to align on timelines. We are coming in as fractional for a purpose, for a reason, to save for many reasons, but to maximize resources being in the top 5. So accountability for me is understanding that coming in to help, whether it's, a project or whether it's, team development from a marketing standpoint, understanding that it is ensuring progress based on a limited timeline. It could be a very long timeline, but it also means that we want to make sure that if we have deadlines, that we're hitting those and holding ourselves and our partners and teams accountable. The second one that I wanted to mention is collaboration, and also collaborating to lead with empowerment. Everything as a fractional leader, and I think I could speak for all of us when we say, is that we want to educate and build design systems for our clients, that if we were to leave a year or 2 years in, that those are everlasting processes and systems that they can rely on going forward. So it is not coming in as a quick fix. It is collaborating, working with the team that's put in place, and it's also empowering the group to set permanent systems that can last for months, years to come. So it's not just fractional is not just a Band-Aid as a partner. It is an empowerment and a part of the team to develop long-term success. So I think for me, those are the two big ones that come to mind. I think if coming from corporate marketing for years and years, I think that the understanding that the timeline and the roadmap, that a fractional has blinders on and can kind of see down the road, is a key benefit that hits both on the empowerment and collaboration as well as the accountability. And it's very challenging to see that in a corporate world where everybody's jobs are not without timeline, but they're less accountable. And I hate comparing, but I feel like it's something that tends to come up.
Indeed. I think the other thing you remind me of as we were talking is, I think we bring an element of fun. We tend to inject, right? We come in and often we don't, we haven't experienced what the days have been like sometimes. And I like to think that we bring an element of fun and fresh perspective. So I hope that, Bishop, I love how you put those together. And I think there's more that everybody on this team can talk about as it relates to, again, we're there to amplify the mission and bring our best selves in that limited period of time that we have with the organization. So, all right, Ross, what do you have next for us?
Absolutely. Next slide is we've got, how do fractional leaders enhance nonprofit impact? And for this one, I think this is a great one for Chrissy and Callie to be able to answer. Callie, can we do a quick sound check? I want to make sure your microphone is working again.
How do I sound?
Much more human, less HR.
Did you guys not hear me last time?
You were robotic.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I wish I would have known that before I went on a 2-minute spiel that you guys maybe didn't even hear. So
all right,
sorry.
I'll interrupt you next time. All right, make that deal.
So how do fractional leaders enhance nonprofit impact? So I've heard lots of good things mentioned already, just about cost effectiveness and specialized knowledge. I really like this idea, and I've experienced it myself, of cross-sector insights. So our work by nature, our clients cross multiple organizations, perhaps within the same sector, in the nonprofit, sector for me personally, but that allows us insights and unique perspectives that can then help us bring innovative approaches to organizations. So we have the benefit of working across multiple organizations and gaining insights that we can then bring to our clients. And this idea of specialized knowledge, I mentioned in my introduction that I have many years as I spent many years in nonprofit leadership on an actual staff team. And if there's one thing that many of us know, it's that when you are in nonprofit leadership, you're often a jack of all trades. Maybe you're the advancement director and you're the marketing director, or maybe you're functioning as the chief of staff and an executive assistant and a project manager. And so in terms of specialized knowledge, and I think you'll see this today in our panel, I specialize in HR, the other panelists specialize in operations and marketing and IT and finance. And so we've intentionally honed in on something specific to gain the knowledge, expertise, training in an area so that we can come in and alleviate a leader who is most likely operating as a jack of all trades. And that's not a sustainable place to be long term. So I do think that specialized knowledge is something that we can bring to the table to really enhance and amplify the impact of a nonprofit for somebody that might say, I'm functioning as a marketing director, but I'm supposed to be, the CEO, or I'm functioning as the HR manager and I'm supposed to be the COO. And so I think that specialized expertise is a really big one. What about you, Chrissy?
Yeah, that's definitely one that I was thinking about too. Just I was thinking about it from the wealth of experience and being able to bring all of that to bear, for our clients. I think the other one that jumps out to me is flexibility and the ability to quickly assess from having that wealth of experience, where there are opportunities and where implementing change can make a big impact quickly. So I think, a lot of times I might be able to look at the landscape of an organization and say, here's some quick wins, and then here's some things that will make a big difference long term, but it's going to take some time and some effort. And so being able to take that experience, quickly assess to make change and start to involve others. I also think we have the we have the benefit, I guess, of being able to tackle long-standing challenges that organizations have with a new perspective and put a new light on something and be a fresh voice in a conversation that maybe there's some internal challenges between people, and being able to interject in a way that maybe the team on the ground have been able to, because they do have to work together every single day and want to maybe preserve peace and not keep trying to change something that's hard. So by being able to come in and share a fresh perspective, sometimes we can move the ball forward on things that have been stuck. I think also from an operations standpoint, some of the areas of impact that we haven't talked about yet, could be just guiding through periods of transition and growth, optimizing, where there is inefficiency, and also scalability. I think all of us would agree that we've been in situations where our clients, might need a lot, and then maybe other initiatives come up that they don't need our help with as much. And so we can scale down during those times and then scale back up later. And so I've definitely experienced that with clients, and, we have a way of communicating, in advance so we can all plan for it. And it works really well. And it helps us to be there when they need us the most. Also crisis management and change, through that crisis, that's another area that we are able to help in and provide bandwidth in as well. So yeah, I think those are the main ones that I was thinking about.
Me off mute. Very cool. Next on our list is, what's an example of successful outcome you've helped achieve for a nonprofit? I have worked with many different size nonprofits. One of the things I was very happy to do for multiple nonprofits is deliver their SharePoint intranet. There's a lot of the wealth of knowledge within an organization, and a lot of key players have that knowledge, and they don't have the opportunity to share that knowledge internally. The mission gets shared externally, but that intrinsic knowledge is very important. So SharePoint is more than just a document repository. It's an intranet. It's not a website for outside, it's a website for inside. You can create web pages. It's included in your subscription. Microsoft gives away 10 premium licenses, which include SharePoint. So I recommend that every nonprofit start up a SharePoint website. My company has partnered with nonprofits to help them get that initial kick off the ground, getting that. I love the naming process. The Raptor Center called their intranet the Nest, and Safe Alliance, their emblem is the lotus, so they call their intranet the lotus. It's really cool to have that. Instead of saying, hey, can you look on SharePoint, can you find that document in SharePoint, they could say, hey, look for that resource on the lotus, and it creates that in that personal brand that's in there. Callie, how's you have an example of a success?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ross. So I typically work with small to mid-sized nonprofits in terms of my typical client. And so one of my clients, which is on the smaller side, under 15 employees, I helped them establish a comprehensive benefits program that would help attract and retain talent in spite of limited resources, since the nature of nonprofit work is typically resource constrained. And so, after evaluating multiple options and going through the vendor process of selecting a vendor, I helped them implement a qualified small employer health reimbursement arrangement. Luckily, they have an acronym for that. It's called QSERA. So maybe you've heard of a QSERA. You may be more familiar with the acronym, but I recommended this to them instead of a traditional group health insurance plan because it significantly reduced the costs while still providing great healthcare benefits to their people. And then we also put in place a 401k plan with employer matching. And so this is just an example of how strategic benefit solutions can enable an organization like theirs and other organizations to compete for talent and support their people while still maintaining financial sustainability. So I think sometimes these smaller nonprofit employers think, oh, that's just out of reach for me. I can't offer matching. I can't offer, retirement plan matching. I can't offer health benefits. I don't technically have to, but if I could, what would it look like to be able to do that to better support my people? So that is my example.
Very cool. There's definitely a lot to leverage when it comes to the budget. Every conversation I have with a nonprofit is about their budget. They are in a financial constrained market. They are pricing everything out, and cost is king. When I work with nonprofits, I try to get them to build IT into their budget. About 7 to 11% of their budget in IT. There's a lot of data that nonprofits have when it comes to donor data, volunteer data, any personal identifiable information, PII, personal health information, PHI, if it's a medical nonprofit. And the industries are getting more and more regulated, and there's a cost involved with being in regulated industries. And there's definitely that conversation of how do I afford fractional leadership? Wendy, you can definitely weigh in on this one.
Thanks, Ross. You mentioned, and by nature, nonprofits are operating in a constrained environment. But not only is it a constrained environment, it's nonprofit financials and budgets in some cases are open to public scrutiny, right? We have the 990 tax return that anybody can go out and look at and assess your financial activities. And so that adds a layer. And to add another layer that can be interesting, depending on our relationship as a fractional leader, and if we're an officer, specifically a chief financial officer, we could actually be on their 990. And in some cases, my name is listed and what my fee is, just like the CEO is listed with their salary. So we have that additional dynamic of this is more than just a private negotiation. This is really a whole different level when we talk about how do we engage in this conversation with a nonprofit, price ourselves in a way that, well, frankly, kind of can put up with public scrutiny, because there's going to be at a different level than what we may, depending on the relationship and the size of the engagement, right? So for that reason, it has to be a very collaborative, open, transparent, in my opinion, process when it comes to how do we, one, convey our value. What's the return on investment of the value that we can bring? And typically we're going to come in, we should be coming in, relatively speaking, less than what it would cost to bring on a full-time employee. But we still have to find a way to be able to articulate that value. And I think sometimes it takes time, because we're not mind readers. We can't read the future, and we don't know all the dynamics until we get to know the organization. So I'll bring it back to, it has to be a collaborative process. I also think that that if we approach kind of our nonprofit partners and talk and come up with creative ways that we can share the risk. And we talked a little bit about the right size and where we can scale and push and do different things, but I think there's an opportunity to be creative and to, for example, I think one way we've tried to be creative, transparent, collaborative on kind of pricing ourselves is that we'll typically break our engagements down into 2 phases. In the first phase, we've referred to it as kind of the onboarding and learning phase. And that's the riskiest part. And we typically think about it being 2 months to 4 months, 60 to 120 days, because that's when we get to know we're getting up under the covers, right? We're really getting up under and understanding what are the dynamics, what are the root of the issues that we're really trying to solve. Those don't come out in those, initial conversations where we're trying to figure out how do we come together. So the way we like to approach is to say, let's go in at a discounted hourly rate, for example, and agree on a cap. Let's just set some sort of benchmark that works with your budget, that makes sense to our team. And what that does, or what we have found that kind of relationship does at the front end, is it creates, it creates, I think, more conversation. It creates a sense of transparency and trust, so that we give ourselves permission to learn and for it to be a little bit wonky as we get to know the organization. But with that commitment that we know most of our nonprofits want to know what they're spending. They want to know month to month as best they can what the outflow is going to be. So we want to get to a steady state, a monthly retainer for the fractional leadership. But we're asking and we're negotiating and we're agreeing with the organization. Let's learn each other and give ourselves time to do that, so that we come out of that, let's call it onboarding, getting to know you period, with I think a much more well thought out win-win on what that monthly amount will be, what that monthly retainer will be. And sometimes we get to the end of that period and we realize that maybe the relationship isn't where it wants to go, but it's okay, because we've had that, we've kind of traveled that journey a bit together. But I think that's one way we try to articulate to our nonprofits and help them think about the value of fractional leaders in the organization. Yeah, thanks, Ross.
Very cool. Absolutely. And we're talking about risk and mitigating risk. That's where both the CFO and the CTO have to come in together and see what risk tolerance the organization even has. How have you collaborated with other fractional leaders in the past? Chrissy, you kind of touched on this earlier. I'd love for you to continue, and then Bishop can answer. And what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll get Callie to do her introduction again. just because we had some technical difficulties earlier, and then we'll get to Q&A. So I encourage everyone to ask their questions in the LinkedIn comments. We already have a few that came in already, which is excellent. So we'd like a few more. And we appreciate everybody attending today. Go ahead, Chrissy.
Yeah. So I think collaboration is a key word we've heard throughout our conversation this morning, and that's definitely the case in working with other fractionals. And have had the chance to do that with several of you on this panel, which has gone very well. So some examples of that, I would say, I've worked with an executive director, interim executive director before, excuse me, on collaborating in a more strategic way as they were working on a succession plan for a nonprofit. And doing that, I was really working closely with the staff and had, valuable insights to share on kind of the inner workings of things that helped him, put together that organizational plan for the future. And so we, talked pretty frequently. I wouldn't say we had scheduled conversations, but we, touch base every couple of weeks throughout that work. And I was able to, share what I was learning and seeing along the way inform his work. Wendy and I had the opportunity, to work with both Wendy and her team on a client. And, while they were doing the day-to-day and long-term planning financially, we noticed that there were some internal processes that weren't going well on the financial side of things. And so had the chance to prioritize what would be helpful to make their work more efficient and honestly help them decide what they should be charging the client, past that introductory phase. And so, we worked to put some processes together internally that were collaborative with her team and the needs they had to do things efficiently, and design that process and documented it and train the team on it and engage the team in the decision-making process around that. And then Ross, you and I have also had the chance to work together collaboratively on a couple clients. And I think, what I saw myself doing on the other side of your work, other than, some of the overall planning and being able to communicate what I was seeing internally as needs, I also was taking, what you were sharing, maybe, how to access your support, and doing simple things like incorporating that into employee handbooks, training the team on how to efficiently access your services during the day and not at night, so that they weren't racking up additional costs and things like that. So sometimes it's very simple things, and sometimes it's more strategic and more collaborative.
Yeah, Bishop, how have you run into this?
So, in lieu of time, I'm gonna kind of build it all into one example, but I think the most common and very popular example is partnering with CFO. It's not lost on me that money and marketing, the alliteration, is there for a reason, but also budget being a theme of what we talked about today, budgeting on what campaigns we can execute, and kind of putting together that marketing channel based on the resources that are available for the nonprofit or the business. So partnering closely with the CFO is typically who I work closely with to make sure that I'm aligning with revenue targets or donation targets for the year, ramping up, dialing down marketing campaigns, and then partnering with the IT professional or leader as well, to making sure that the CRM is implemented properly and within the system in a way that everyone touches it, or if whoever needs to touch it or have some sort of involvement from end to end. So from inception all the way through donation to kind of what we do on the back end. The IT is a huge part of that, because tech is a foreign language in my world, at least IT tech. So that's just kind of a quick synopsis, our most common example, because I know I really want to get to our questions from our viewers.
Absolutely.
So Callie, you since I know we lost you. If you want to kind of
Can you hear
have
me?
You back again. Yep, we can
Am
hear
I
you
a
now.
human? Am I a robot?
You are human.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
You check the box. I'm not a robot. There you go.
Okay, I'll make this quick. So once again, I'm Callie Fulton, founder of People Matter Most, an HR consultancy for nonprofits. So as a former nonprofit leader, I understand your unique challenges, which is precisely why my business exists, to lift the HR burden so nonprofit leaders like you can focus on your mission and help your people thrive. So some of you will resonate with this scenario. So you're passionate about your organization's mission, but you find yourself spending countless hours stuck in and managing HR issues instead of advancing your cause. This is precisely why specialized fractional support can be transformative. So we find that smaller organizations can't justify a full-time HR staff member, but they do face similar people-related challenges as larger organizations. And then next thing you know it, nonprofit leaders become reluctant HR managers without proper training. So People Matter Most provides specialized HR expertise covering the entire employee lifecycle. So from talent acquisition to team and manager development to employee relations and everyone's favorite, compliance and labor law. So the fractional model offers good flexibility. Like we've mentioned, you can scale up and down. We do the same thing as a business based off the needs and budget of our clients. So leaders working with us typically reclaim an average of 15 hours weekly that they can then reallocate to mission-focused activities. And we believe that people are your most powerful resource. And then when they are properly supported, your impact can grow exponentially. So once again, thanks for having me today to talk about this really important topic in the nonprofit sector.
Absolutely. And we appreciate having you. Let me go ahead and move to our official Q&A slide so I can be able to mark that up. There we go. Officially at our Q&A, here we go. Callie, we've got 2 comments in the comments section, if you're ready to take it away.
Sure. I see those. Thanks, guys, for hanging with us this long and for posing some good questions. So it looks like Eric submitted a question. He's connecting from North Carolina. When speaking of accountability and looking at being fractional, how do you balance the needs of long-term goals versus short-term? Conceptually, you won't. Can you hear
Go
me?
ahead. Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Conceptually, you won't be the leader there for the long run. So how do you ensure that your short-term strategies do not torpedo the long-term strategies of your clients?
When I work with an organization as a CTO, onboarding and alignment happens at the bulk at the beginning. A lot of it for me is, where's the organization at today? With IT upgrades, a big thing is outages. So I don't want to come in and start changing everything on day one. I want to see where the organization's at today and come up with a plan and a strategy that will come alongside and help to improve versus just rip and replace. Chrissy, how's it been? Well, there's a lot of change management in COO land.
Yeah, I think I touched on this maybe a little bit earlier, but I'll, expand. To me, I always want to, the embedded part of being fractional is what I probably value the most, because I see the real change and the real long-term change happening when we create it collaboratively, and the team members that are involved in that collaboration are excited and inspired and see the benefit and the value of that change, making their own lives easier, making bigger impact for those they're serving. And so when we do it in that fashion, then the change becomes change that they own. And I'm not owning it. I'm just kind of creating accountability toward it, creating a way to measure the outcomes of it so that it becomes and stays a priority. So really collaboration and empowerment of that team that's going to own that process and that change is what helps to make things move forward without taking away from the bigger picture long-term goals. So I think I would say that it's hard for me take the big picture and the small things apart, because they, the smaller changes are in service to the overall strategy. So, I wouldn't be working on something that wasn't in service to that overall strategy.
And Ross, and Christy, if I can add a perspective, one of my organizations, I've been the fractional CFO since 2018, another since 2020. So, and in a couple of cases, I've outlasted the CEO or even two CEOs. So from a kind of framing it up, I think the fractional role, certainly when we stepping into it with a long, thinking of it as a long-term relationship. And I think so starting out with this approach that it will be long-term, so that there's not a conflict. Because I really appreciate your question, Eric. I think it's an excellent question and something to really think about. I think it's important for us in this space as fractional leaders to kind of recognize. And so we try to step in thinking this is long-term, so that what we're doing, yes, we're learning the short-term dynamics, but really trying to keep it in the long term. And frankly, I think one measure of success when we do a really good job in our role is when the organization grows so big that they need a full-time person. And I think that is actually sometimes success when we lose that relationship as the fractional leader. Hopefully we'll still be a consultant. Maybe our role changes to consultant, or they'll grab us and put us on the board. But I think it's a really important question about perspective. And I think what I know about the other folks that you're listening to today, and what I've experienced, is that, again, it's about the mission. It is a long-term approach, but really great question I hadn't thought about myself.
Callie, looks like we've got one more Q&A, and then we'll go to our wrap up.
Sure. I see a question from Sharon, who's also connecting from North Carolina. Looking across your client organizations, what common gaps or missed opportunities do you see that could be addressed by fractional support?
Who wants to take this one? I think that client organizations have gaps that they may or may not be aware of. And I feel like outside perspective is huge, just where you normally bring in a consultant, especially in corporations. But for nonprofits, you might feel the tear in the fabric, but you don't know yet where it is. And so people are, working in daily operations and may see the problems, but outside fractional leadership can come in and say, and observe and be able to pull those sorts of nuggets out for you, definitely.
Yeah, Russ, I would agree. I think that a lot of times the pain points from a marketing standpoint is when there's either a lot of growth that's happened very quickly, and there's ideal data, customer communications. There's things that have kind of leveled to a point where, and Callie alluded to this as well, people are wearing many hats, and marketing being one of them. And it's either being managed off the side of their desk, or it is something that they know that they want to get very strategic. They have ultimate goals in mind. So from a marketing standpoint, the gaps typically are, there's a sweet spot in the growth of a nonprofit or business where a CRM or customer relationship manager either has been implemented or isn't being used properly, but you know that you want to get consistent and build relationships, which is part of the mission for nonprofits. So from a marketing standpoint, it is knowing that you want to do more and maybe not knowing exactly what that next step is. So a marketing leader can come in and look at the big picture and understand what has worked for other similar businesses or nonprofits in that situation, and kind of set that roadmap properly and build those systems and put them in place for the business to continue and to really work on nurturing those relationships and staying relevant in front of their donors and members.
Key takeaways from today's presentation is that fractional leadership brings specialized expertise to nonprofits in a cost-effective way. I can't highlight it enough. Cost-effective. That is number one for nonprofits. We are cost-effective. Building a fractional team of expertise and fostering collaboration can round out your leadership. So you might currently have a CFO, but having a fractional CFO be able to round out that leadership group. Collaboration between fractional leaders, it maximizes impact. It really brings the organization to the next level in the maturity. So how to get started with leveraging fractionals? You identify the key areas that would benefit from additional expertise, whether it be IT, marketing, financial, operations, or HR. Set clear expectations and goals for that role that you need to fill. Request a proposal for ongoing monthly services, or as Wendy alluded to, just have the conversation with the fractional leader and see where it works in the budget. We are all people that give and give, and we want to give back to our community, and that's what we do and why we do it. You want to onboard and integrate your fractional leader into your team culture, and you want to align with the organization's needs and budget constraints. This slide is a little bit of an eye chart, so I'm going to slide in a little bit more, but we have our contact information at the bottom, mission mappers. You can schedule Ross directly right on his calendar, Localish Marketing. People Matter Most LLC and Laxton CFO Services. Those are all of our websites, so you can be able to reach us. And we are so happy that you all joined us today, and we hope that you have a fabulous, fabulous day. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.
Hey, Ross, we also just wanted to offer that if anyone wanted to have a complimentary session with one of us, we're all willing to engage with those who listened to the webinar today, and glad to start a conversation and do that without any fees. So
no fees. Yes.
And please,
our calendar's open. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, connect with us on LinkedIn. That might be the easier way since we did this through LinkedIn Live. So reach out, connect with any one of us on LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation there as well.
And make sure you add a note when you link in with someone. It's key because a lot of people just link in with random people and I don't accept randoms. I need you to say where we met, which is the webinar, so that I know it's you, and then I'll accept the LinkedIn request. Cool.
And if this was helpful, we will post the recording. So share it with somebody that you know that may also benefit from this information and wasn't able to join us today live.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.